Good evening runners, and welcome back to another video from me, That Running Girl. In today's video, I'm going to be talking you through my 30-second marathon, which I ran last month, and I was 47th out of 222 women overall. The New Forest Marathon is an entirely off-road marathon with an elevation profile of approximately 800 feet. So it was a really challenging marathon, and yeah, definitely one that was an experience. I have only ever run New Forest Marathon once before, 5 years ago, and it was an entirely different course. So yeah, it was definitely a unique experience, and honestly, it has taken me a month to actually kind of process it and make a video on how I feel it went and offer up a few lessons of things that I learned during the marathon. So let's get into it. First of all, I want to say that marathon running is a lifelong journey. I started running marathons in 2008, which is a long time ago now, and I definitely feel like I have learned so much about myself along the way, and every single race that I have stood on the start line and crossed the finish line of, I have learned different things about myself and life in general. So whether you're getting into marathon running, or you've run a few marathons, or whatever your ambition is with the marathon, whether it's speed or just across the finish line, I do feel like you will always gain a real insight into your kind of hidden strengths. And throughout different chapters of your life, certainly for me, through different chapters of my life, marathon running has just helped me tremendously. It's almost like the longer I run in distance, the more I actually unlock parts of me and find out parts about myself that I didn't even know existed, or was hidden deep in my psyche that I hadn't gone into yet. So yeah, I will say that it was definitely one of those races. But I'm going to touch on 5 points today, which is basically 5 different points that running my 30-second marathon taught me and can teach you. And I feel like these are some good and quite unique tips for the marathon, and not your typical, ones that you'll just read in an AI blog. So let's get into it. Firstly, I think it is so important to review the course absolutely thoroughly, either online or in person. So I did this to quite a good degree. So as you all know, if you watch this channel, I got a running coach in January. And as part of my running training program, my coaches look through the race profile and the map of the race and the elevation, and then they will feed back to me like a brief race plan. Do this at this mile, oh, this bit's coming up at this mile, there's a really hilly bit coming up at this mile, chill out at this mile. And so that really helped me going into the marathon, having that insight of the course and knowing, between 0 and 9 miles, it was kind of relatively undulating. And then between 9 and 15, it started rising a bit. 15 to 20, it was really hilly. And then knowing from 20 to 26.2, it was kind of relatively downhill and relatively flat. Having that bigger picture vision of the race profile in my mind was absolutely crucial in keeping me focused in the race, because not only did it break up the race, but it enabled me to really think, I've got a really hard part coming up. I really need to lock in and just feel absolutely focused on this part of the race. If you can do it in person, it's obviously even better. I know some people do that, certainly with lesser distances, and maybe distances that are a little bit, races that are a little bit more local. People might go and just jog the course like the weekend before and see what the kind of challenges, the obstacles are going to be like. That's something that you should do. But it also helps not just with feeling confident about what's coming up in the race, but it helps with shoe choice. So New Forest Marathon was an off-road marathon, and I was really paranoid, and I didn't know whether to wear trail shoes or road shoes. In the end, I actually wore trail shoes to start with, and then I swapped into road shoes 10 miles in, and then I swapped back into trail shoes about 19 miles in. which made for an interesting race. I did actually lose 10 minutes doing this, but in the race, I got really bad sort of FOMO from when I saw people in road shoes on the road sections, but I knew on the trail sections that I would be so much more kind of grounded and less slipping about if I had a trail shoe on, because there was so much more traction on my trail shoes. So I did end up swapping a few times, but if you know the race course and you've recce'd that, then it will be a lot easier to make the shoe choice and you won't lose 10 minutes and be paranoid what shoes you're going to wear to the race. The second lesson that I learned on the 30-second marathon that I think you should employ in races as well is cruise controlling your emotions. So by this, I mean, I don't know about you, but if I go on Instagram or if I go on YouTube, every single person and every single race they do, they literally hype it up like it is the Olympics. And as someone who has run for 20 years, I obviously get, excited when I'm going to do a race, and I get in that kind of race, mindset. And it is really exciting, especially, as you know people, you see people on the race scene, and it's a really happy and fun environment. But I'll be honest, not every race I feel like that. It's just not the reality. And so when I went into this race, I actually thought that it was going to be relatively mild conditions and quite warm and sunny. For the middle of September in the UK, it usually is. Usually in the UK, we don't get a load of rain and grey skies until October, November. So when I actually arrived at the course in the morning and it was raining, we had to walk through 3 fields to get to even the start of the race, by which point these fields were soaked. My feet were soaked, my socks were soaked, my shoes were soaked. And so I just instantly, not just my feet, but just in general, the weather was bad. And I don't really associate, a good race having to be sunny, but because I thought it was going to be sunny and we've had a really dry spring summer for, hundreds of years, we've had a dry spring summer for hundreds of years, I just thought it would be dry and sunny, and it wasn't. And I was really paranoid about how wet underfoot the course was going to be, and it just wasn't good for me. So I instantly kind of went into this mindset of just almost like my brain was just on cruise control. I was just detached from feeling happy or feeling sad. I wasn't excited, but I wasn't depressed about it either. I was just neutral about it. And I feel like there's a real calm power in being neutral about things and just kind of detaching your emotions a little bit, especially when you're so locked into running 26.2 miles and you just have to keep your cool and keep your calm. And by having that neutral mindset, I was really able to just be really calm and really relaxed about it without, thinking, oh, I have to be so happy. This has to be the happiest, most exciting race ever. Because once I accepted that it wasn't, and I just thought, do you know what? I'm just going to take each mile as it comes, and I'm just going to chill out, and I'm just going to be neutral. And adopting that kind of stoic mentality really, really helped me just switch off from being overly emotive about it, because in some races I am too emotive, and then that kind of catches up to me when I'm actually should be more just directly focused. So yeah, cruise controlling your emotions is definitely something that I recommend. The third lesson is to adapt your recovery to the course to preempt any injuries and prehab. So by this, I mean, New Forest Marathon was entirely off-road, and I was really surprised how much more beat up and stiff I felt in the entire week after the marathon. Usually after a road marathon, it maybe takes me a day, maybe 2 days maximum, and I feel, fluid, my legs feel kind of flexible again, and feel ready to go out and run again. But the off-road marathon definitely surprised me in how stiff that I felt. And yeah, it took me longer to get back to it after the off-road marathon. So adapting your recovery in terms of how much rest you take, whether you're eating more protein. I definitely ate a bit more protein, plant-based protein after the race in the week, and preempting any kind of injuries. So maybe getting more of an intense sports massage to just ensure that your body is, for the next training block, you're going into it not kind of, you know, running on any negatives and not having any kind of negative impact, like dragging on from the race that you've just done. The fourth thing that I learned is realizing the impact of pre-race stress and target finding quieter hotels and activities. Okay, so this might be one that's just for someone that's like sensitive, like to environments like I am. But if you get any kind of pre-race anxiety, and I feel like we all do, but if you get that kind of anxiety, pre-race anxiety when you're staying somewhere before a race, or, you know, where you eat the night before, or even down to the elements of like where your hotel room is in the hotel, ask for a quiet room. I've been doing this lately and I can't put into words how much more beneficial it is having a quiet room than having like a hotel room at the front of the hotel, you know, where people might be walking past or there might be a road. If you're running a marathon in the morning, you need the best night's sleep ever. And that means, you know, tranquility and relaxation. So prioritizing finding a hotel early on that is quiet in surroundings, but also asking for a quiet room really helped me. And then the fifth lesson from a 30-second marathon is to consider going on a digital detox and processing the journey of your marathon yourself without having the noise of Instagram or YouTube or TikTok feeding you all these running, you know, hype messages. Because marathon blues and marathon kind of downtime after you've crossed that finish line and it is just absolute euphoria is just something else. And realizing that and kind of unplugging a little bit and just giving yourself the time, like I did, taking a month before I made this video, to actually process how you feel about the race and, you know, think about what went right, what went wrong, what you could improve for next time, like being really kind to yourself, like I say, without having that just absolute bombardment of social media pushing like almost toxic positivity running messages to you. Because I feel like there is a lot of toxic positivity in the running world in terms of everyone just, like I say, being like a hype character. So I found that that really helped me just to process how I felt about my 30-second marathon. So I hope these tips have been useful, and like I said, I put some real thought into those because I didn't want to sound like every other, like, here are 5 tips about the marathon, like from someone who's run like 2 marathons. So yeah, I hope you found those tips useful, and I hope you're running well, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.